everybody's drinking. Today I have Corona Light because it's summertime. I'm trying to get my beach bod going on. What are you guys doing? How's this week been going? We got the holiday coming up. Do you know where your freight is? I hope you do, because this is the most popular weekend, along with July 4th, for freight to be stolen. So perhaps if your freight is sitting overnight somewhere, you should make sure you know where it is and it's a secured lot. That tip, I'd probably say it to y'all from a headache come Tuesday, Wednesday, when you figure out your freight didn't get delivered. So be careful. And by the way, thieves steal everything this weekend. So don't sit there and be like, oh, Cassandra's cheap freight. That means it can be sold on the street really quickly. And also, by the way, baby food would be one you do not want to have sitting anywhere unsecured. All right, we're getting into the episode. Before we do, I want you guys to know a couple things. Is that for the next few weeks, I will be opening up Carrier Assure to everyone and for free for a little while. So anyone and everyone, just go to carriershare.com or message me, Cassandra Gaines, on LinkedIn or anywhere you want, if you want access for free. It is the product that will quickly rate your carrier's performance before you onboard them or before you give them that shipment this weekend that could get stolen. You don't have to dig through all that data and sit there and train people. It's a score. It's easy to understand. Check it out, carriershare.com. Okay, now let's get to our guest because I'm very excited. I've been begging him to come on the show for a while and he's been dodging me. Matthew, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing this. You are in Phoenix right now, Scottsdale, right? And tell me how the weather is. Is it nice?
Yeah, it'll be, I think 102 today. So it's...
oh, yeah. Perfect pool weather.
Yeah, I still got my sunburn from last weekend.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you, I'm on the East Coast these last 2 weeks, and it really hasn't been all that nice. So you're very lucky. What kind of beer are you drinking today?
So I have a Spotted Cow, which...
Where'd you get it?
It's Wisconsin contraband. So I have...
I know.
Every time I have my Wisconsin people coming here, a 12-pack is always the request.
I want you to know it's my favorite beer ever of all beers. I'm so jealous right now. And yes, right. You can only buy it in Wisconsin.
Correct.
And I heard that people have got it. Like I heard there was like this bar in Chicago that would go take like a big van and go up to Wisconsin, buy the Spotted Cow and bring it down and try to sell it at the bar. And they got big trouble for it.
I actually called some retailers and asked if we could send one of our trucks to pick up any, and I was told no.
Damn them. Don't they understand it? It's personal consumption. We don't even need to sell it. It's just for us. Damn it. Okay, so one thing I did not know about you when we met finally in person in Arkansas at the FreightWaves conference is that you are a former Schneider guy. How did I not know that? You're born and raised in Green Bay?
I'm born and raised in Green Bay, yep. That was my...
So give me like the story where you went from Schneider and you did all these amazing things and then you're here in Scottsdale and Fresh Freight.
Yeah, so I grew up in a trucking family. My mom got me my first job at Schneider. She was at Schneider for over 25 years. You worked with my Aunt Sue on your claims team.
Oh my goodness, I love Sue so much.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved her.
Yeah, I got a kind of a weird job, and they're like, it was a very commission heavy deal, and I was just pretty much out of school, and they said, I don't know if he's going to make any money. It's really commission based, and from there, I guess I did well. We ran a bunch of weird freight. I did a bunch of trade show work.
Oh, which is hard.
Disney on Ice and
which is time sensitive.
We were bringing tigers into Canada, and that was a weird game. But yeah, it was. So I started there. I was there for about 9 years. I moved out to Phoenix in 2009. Been here ever since. Met my wife. Started working with another company here in Phoenix. Was there for 7 years, and in 2016 I left there and started my own thing.
That's amazing. Okay, first of all, I am utterly shocked you even left Schneider because your aunt was at Schneider forever. How long was she there again? She's the most amazing woman I met at Schneider.
She passed away last year, and she actually that was up until the day she passed. She was working cargo claims.
Unbelievable. And y'all, this is Sue. She worked at Schneider, and she reported into one of the departments I worked for, and I spent so much time with her. I loved her absolutely dearly. And she was so clever. And I think you have all her books, right?
I do. So when she passed, she left me all of her claims books, and they have all of her highlights and page markers.
I just love that. She's an amazing woman, and I'm so sad that she passed.
Yeah, she taught me about the Carmack, and everything I learned about claims. She started.
Which claims are very difficult in your world. So wait, first of all, to back up, so you were at Schneider for 9 years. Then you were like one of those people. Like nobody really leaves Schneider. I can't believe you left. And then you went to Phoenix, and then and then I see a Green Bay Packers football behind you.
Yep.
Which I know my Packer people are going to freak out when they see that.
It's a big deal here. I'm still a season ticket holder to the Packers. Shareholder and the whole deal. We're big time when it comes to the Packers.
Unbelievable. This is so funny. Oh my goodness.
3 Arizona-born kids and an Arizona-born wife that are now diehards.
Yes.
Well, my wife's first game, it was like 20 below zero.
She's dying and freezing, but she's like, I still love
it. And she was pregnant at the time, so she wasn't able to keep herself warm with the beverages.
Oh no, she was not. In fact, she was like this to you at some point, I'm sure, raising the head. Okay, sorry, claims. So moving, first of all, how did you start Fresh Freight? Before I dive into claims and this commodity, and I have so much passion about it, thanks to Sue. But how did you decide to start Fresh Freight?
In a past life, we did just a ton of produce, and we did some like kind of some extreme produce too. We would ship over the road to Alaska. A lot of multi-pick, a lot of real hard stuff. And, I kind of gravitated towards it. I had customers that would come and say, hey, Matt, we're having all these problems on this, and that. And can you help? And, turns out I was good at it. And I enjoyed kind of the action of produce.
Yep.
It's a different.
And you can't just be anybody. You can't just be a regular broker or shipper and start dabbling into the produce world. Because you could get yourself in serious trouble. So tell me like some amateur mistakes, like people who should not have been dabbling in produce.
I get inquiries all the time from people saying, hey, brokers or people young in their career saying, hey, how all these shippers are real tight with the produce. How do I get in? And I tell them, stick to your dry van stuff if that's what you want to do. But it's the stuff I've seen over the years is guys that will pull current rates off of DAT and price it as year round without understanding the seasonality of the markets. When Idaho, when the load to truck ratio is 300-1 in Idaho, like they don't get that when you're in big peak produce. Produce is also transition. So people that'll put a year-round rate on stuff out of Salinas, well, produce was only grown in Salinas for 6 months. Being in Arizona, we're a produce hotbed. The local carriers, I think, is a big piece of it. We're real active in Nogales and Yuma, and if you don't know the produce markets or the carriers in the produce markets or the suppliers, the growers, you're gonna have a hard time. Produce is weird in that, it's very there's no good tech for produce, for managing produce from a freight side. You're getting tenders, the day before pickup. It can be multi-pick.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's there's no EDI. You're building everything manually.
Oh God.
You're getting on the phone at 6 a.m. to sit in a call queue to make an appointment.
Is it because the shippers are just often don't have the resources to have the tech and the people and the?
So the supply chain on produce is just so dynamic. Like, you are literally loading product that was in the ground in that morning. So like, they don't know what their harvest numbers are. If they say, hey, we're supposed to have 10,000 cases of asparagus, and they only have 7,000 and they're running another production line later in the day. It's very nimble on how they have to work production. It's a strange game.
It is a strange game. So what do you do? First of all, can you partial some of those loads?
So
or do you try not to?
I mean, Fresh Freight does not. We have some customers that we call them kind of rolling consolidations where, in a perishable environment, there's very few produce commodities that like food service or grocery retailers really bring in like one SKU for. So what they'll say is like, hey, we have 6 pallets of broccoli here, 8 pallets of cauliflower over there, 10 pallets of romaine lettuce over here, and they'll turn a load into a 3-pick just so that they can cover their freight cost.
Damn,
a lot of multi-stuff.
Dynamic. So, dumb question. What's the equipment? I mean, are you moving it on just dry? Are you just moving on dry van? Are you flatbed? Are you doing reefer?
All reefers. All temperature.
All reefers. Damn. Okay, so you're only having to work with reefers. So the other question I had for you was, I see this all the time in the claims world. And Sue and I would talk about it a lot too, is when you would have a carrier show up to load the produce onto the refrigerated trailer and the temperature wasn't right. And later on we have a claim for it. And we're like, hey, the temperature wasn't right. You loaded it and it said right here on the BOL, it should have been this. And the carrier was like, but the shipper loaded it. They loaded it anyhow. It should be their fault. What is usually, and we hear this a lot with dirty trailers too. I remember Sue and I one time had a claim where you could see the blood. There was blood in the trailer, like dripping down the trailer walls. It was disgusting. But the shipper still loaded like the goods on there, and there's no way you could have not seen the blood and the stinkiness. Mm-hmm. And the carrier was like, they still loaded it though. What do you usually do when you're in that tough situation?
Most shippers have a preloading checklist that they're supposed to be going through. From a trailer condition standpoint, you got to make sure the chute is intact. There's no holes in the chute, or there's no holes in the wall or the floor. And then it's visually it looks clean enough. There's sometimes you have pallet debris and things like that. They might say, hey, go get a washout, or at least room through it. But from a food safety standpoint, you will before and after every load, you shouldn't be having a washout. But that was actually a great point. I'm really glad you made it about the temperature at pickup time. So I wish as an industry, I wish there was a better standardization for it. When we call it cold chain, it's basically a custody of the cold chain. So what our drivers are trained to do is called pulping, where they stick they ask the shipper for a pulp sample. And the driver carries a thermometer with him, and he is supposed to be taking 5 product samples before they load it. Now, and if there's a variance, we have to report that stuff. Like, hey, this thing was supposed to be 36 degrees. It's pulping at 55 degrees. What do you want us to do? And as a carrier, if you're not doing that, you're signing for a product that you may be running into a claim on, and this is what we deal with every day. All the shippers also load a temp recording device. So the first thing when that truck is received, the first thing they do is the QC guys pull that recorder, and if there's any blips on or variances, that's the first call out. And then you might have to go get a reefer download, things like that. But loading hot product is a huge problem. And if you don't know what you're doing, you basically just bought yourself $3,000 worth of produce.
Yep. That's what I've seen too.
And the carrier's insurance company is not going to pay for.
Oh, do tell. Why is that?
So there's no reefer breakdown.
I want to say the answer.
So reefer breakdown, those are like two of my least favorite words. So if you can't show that the unit mechanically failed, so many insurance policies will deny your claim.
So I hope that the Freightways folks take a clip of what he just said, because it's so valuable for everyone to know that, your insurance will not cover just an error on the temperature. It has to be a briefer breakdown.
But and that again, just a huge emphasis needs to be on the driver transition where it goes from shipper to driver when he's loading it, that he's getting those samples. But it creates a bunch of other challenges too, because with produce, it's not uncommon to have a 6-hour delay, an 8-hour delay, hell,
oh God,
24-hour delay. And to ask a driver to stand on the dock with his thermometer during those delays it's a pain in the ass.
Why do they have such delays?
It's usually, so especially in the last couple of years, huge labor shortages, especially on the West Coast, like in the latest markets, where it's just, they're not able to get product from the fields because they're literally pulling it out of the ground that day. They got to go get it into boxes and then they have to cool it. And that process can take half the day. And then they have to have forklift operators to be able to stage and load it. And when you're at a facility that's loading 20 doors and they got 3 forklift guys, it's a slow process.
Wow. Tell me what a bad shipper looks like and what a good shipper looks like. Like we all have them, right? And you don't have to be too specific. Can you just be generic? But I know that all of us have. Even when I ran my own law firm, I would have clients that I'd be like, no, they're going to cost me more money than to even take on. What does it look like in the produce world for a bad shipper versus a good one?
In food in general, anybody that charges a late fee, like shame on you. Shame on you. That's a big thing. The good ones are transparent about delays and they won't let you schedule appointments knowingly that they're not going to have product. You can say, hey, we'd like to have a 3 p.m. pickup time. And they know damn well sometimes that they're not going to have product till 10, 11 p.m. So the good ones will tell you, hey, I can't schedule you at 3. Here's your midnight. And they give you a little bit of a window. And the bad ones will schedule the appointment just to kind of get you off their phone. And then you're going to sit there. And then when you're having the problems at night and our after hours teams is trying to call the dock, they just don't answer.
Unbelievable.
Thankfully, we have a lot of great relationships with shippers. Our after hours team. I mean, we're in like book clubs with the after hours crew of some of these, which I think is fantastic. But we know all them. A lot of people by name, and we know who to call. And if you don't have those relationships, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yep. It's so funny because the same thing back in my lawyer days. It was the same type of thing. Like if you knew who to call and you were fluent in the industry, you could cut corners. You knew how to resolve problems without spending a lot of money. It makes complete sense that in this niche you need to be. Produce is an after hours game. So if you're not prepared for that, like we're in the office all day long. Just like normal human beings, we like to go home and kind of unplug a little bit. If you work in produce, that is not your life. You are looking at your phone. You are getting phone calls at 1 a.m. And even worse, you are calling people at 1 a.m. Like you're that guy. Oh my God. You're that guy. You're like, where are you?
Spouses probably hate my guts. I'm calling you at 1 a.m. And not only am I just calling you just to, say hi, I'm going to ask you to get out of bed, get your laptop turned on, and start calling other people to save the problem. Because if we don't, and that's the expectation. So this isn't just, me being a weirdo. The expectation is as a carrier, you're waking people up if it's going to jeopardize on-time delivery. So that's just the game. And so many food shippers don't have an after-hours support team. So you are calling a buyer and, it's not.
Oh my God.
I've been cursed out by wives, and you can't believe.
I don't care. I need to get this freight delivered.
Oh, the best is when you catch somebody's like, oh, I just got out of a wedding. Let me see what I can do. It's like, but this is also hey, what do you want? I mean, you want your produce.
You got it.
And
we got to get it delivered.
There's no often produce.
That's wild. So where are the hotbeds in our country? I heard you say, we know Arizona now. Yep, I heard you say Idaho. Whatever, one of the I ones.
Leafy greens are like during the winter months, basically November up until April, May. It's in Yuma, Arizona. Is the majority of the country's lettuce is grown. Lettuce and like
Really?
leafy greens, and then it transitions to Salinas, California, for the second half of the year. So it goes back and forth. So twice a year, all of your origins change. You're still delivering to Atlanta, Miami, wherever it is, but your customers also have an expectation that you're going to service them in Salinas and you're going to be able to service them in Yuma. But then we also bring all the imported produce too, like from Nogales, down in South Texas in the valley, far Texas. We do a lot of avocados out of like Laredo. Those are the big produce markets for some of the standard produce. But then you're looking at the Pacific Northwest. A lot of Washington, a lot of apples, blueberries, big seasons up there. Potatoes and onions. Idaho, big potatoes and onions. They have the big swings. But then onions go from Idaho, then they go to California, then they go to New Mexico. Those are the domestically grown. But then you're also getting all the Mexico imports coming up through South Texas. But yeah, West Coast produce moves around quite a bit.
Do you get a lot of produce coming up through Arizona? Through Mexico, sorry.
So New Mexico, we do a lot of onions. There's onions and potatoes out of New Mexico, down in like Las Cruces.
From Mexico, I meant. Is there a lot of importing from Mexico into Arizona, or is it mostly Texas?
Oh, no, Nogales, that's all it is.
Okay.
All that stuff is Mexican produce coming up, which, that's a different game too, because it's coming up on a transfer truck and, it's not being grown anywhere near there. So all day long, if your driver's checked in at the shipper, they might say, product should be here before noon. And then, then they're trying to track down a Mexican truck that's coming up, and they're like, okay, well, he's gonna be there at 3, and then it's 5, and then you start playing some of that stuff, and but so a ton of Mexican produce for sure. And then usually it goes into a bonded warehouse, and it's there's inspectors on site, and it creates a lot of dynamics in the process.
Yeah, but it's so interesting. So what I'm hearing is, if you are lazy, this area of freight is not a good idea.
I would agree with that.
And that's fine. I mean, not every area of freight is for everybody. But this sounds like a lot of work. What I hear, a lot of work.
Yeah, and guys aren't used to, we've had people come over from different freight companies or whatever it is, and they don't understand the business, and they're like, holy shit, you guys are nuts.
Yeah. So when you hire, do you hire freight gals and guys, or do you try to hire people who are not in freight?
So we have a mix of both. We like mixing some people with some experience with some people just getting started in their career, and, pass along that tribal knowledge. We actually have a lot of employees that came from food service. So like that's a super service critical environment.
Oh.
They get it.
Yep.
Ernest, who on my team, like
I like Ernest.
So Ernest, funny story about Ernest. He used to be a customer of mine, and when I started my business, he's like, "You're crazy. You're crazy. You shouldn't. I can't believe you're doing this." And he's like, so that a couple years later, now he works with us. So
now he's a crazy one too. And everybody, you can creep on Ernest and Matt on LinkedIn. You just look for Fresh Freight, and you can see all their employees, and you can see Ernest, and you can ping them and say hello. I love Ernest. You got a good gang there. I like Randy as well. I had a meeting with him earlier. Where'd you get Randy from?
So Randy he was kind of I worked with him at another firm, and he used to run West Coast LTL. Refrigerated LTL, which if you've ever done that, that's a different game. You're running.
I heard you can make some good money in that area, though.
But you're working with 15 stop loads, just a crazy mix of commodities, and you have to be like on your game all day, every day, trying to manage LTL routes. And so that was his background when he came to me. And then produce actually came kind of easy to him.
I was just about to ask you that. Was it like, he was like, oh, this is easy. This is nothing. Back in my day, you guys, in the LTL world, which usually LTL is easier. And when you look at dry van and other commodities, LTL is easier than truckload because everything is EDI. It's implemented. You're working with the big LTL carriers. But in the LTL, frozen LTL and the food. Oh my God.
He's doing fresh. So he's doing produce. He's doing meats, a lot of bizarre stuff he used to do. But yeah, it was, he was kind of a ninja too. Like you can call Randy at 11 p.m. on a Saturday and say, hey, we're sending a truck to this random warehouse in San Francisco. And he's like, oh yeah, I know that place. Go into the back alley and ask for Steve. Like, he's got this weird photographic memory.
And you're like, I'm not even going to ask how you know that.
He knows, like, he has a cell phone number for every guy on the West Coast, I swear. But,
is he the one you interrupted in the middle of a wedding?
No.
I get to see him being about to get married or something and be like, oh, what's wrong with my shipment, Matt? What happened?
But he's the
what
guy
do I need to fix?
He's the guy I call. I'm like, hey, I need you to help me out with this.
I'm it. So what?
Many times.
What else do I need to know about Fresh Freight before we wrap this up? Are you guys like what are you thinking about? First of all, we can go into fuel, we can go into the labor shortage, we can do whatever you want, or we can go into what is on the next horizon for. Let's see, we're in May, so we're about halfway through the year. So what else is going on in your world?
So, we're based in Scottsdale. We're asset-based plus brokerage. And we've kind of cut our teeth and built a reputation based on our expertise on the West Coast markets. That's kind of been that's what we do. That's what we stick to. But, we just opened an office now in Dallas that we are going to really start expanding our Texas and Southeast produce coverages into new regions. We're going to be dealing with the Midwest markets a lot more now with the Wisconsin, Minnesotas. We're talking about, the onions out of Georgia, the Florida, and we're really going to start to build those lanes as well. So anybody looking for a good produce carrier, hopefully we'll be able to help you out.
Yeah, I like it. And I think I'm going to come see you guys in Dallas soon. Obviously I'm going to see you guys in Scottsdale when I come back. When it cools off a little, although I don't mind the heat at all. And then I think I'm going to go to Dallas and see you guys too. I got to keep an eye on my Fresh Freight people. I love it.
Now, is this still Madtropolis? Is that still what we're doing?
It's still Madtropolis. I think a lot of the old school followers still say Madtropolis. I love that you said that. A lot of the new ones are like, what the heck is Madtropolis? But back in the day, y'all, when we were crazy, and MadGaines was very, very wild in 2020 and beginning of 2021. We used to have a whole group called Madtropolis.
Lifelong subscriber.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. It's so funny you say that because that's a term I don't use very much anymore, and I should still. But
it's nice to be able to have a beer too.
Yeah, exactly. See, happy Free Friday. So for those of you who want to get in touch with Matt, all you have to do is just Google Fresh Freight out of Scottsdale. It's not very difficult, easy name to remember, or you can look on LinkedIn and follow me. Matt, we are so excited to have you with us. Thank you very, very much. I hope that people reach out to you, and I hope your business continues to grow, and I'm very jealous. I think what I'm going to do is next time I'm in Scottsdale, I'm going to sneak into your office and steal all of your spotted cow.
I have a 12
freeze
behind there. So
now I know where it is. So Ernest will let me in.
Rotation.
I'll lie to your whole team too. I'll be like, I'm here for a very important meeting with Matt. He's expecting me. But don't let him know yet. I got to sit down and get comfortable, and then I'll steal all your beer and then leave. And hold it ransom. All right. We'll see you guys next week. And thank you for joining us at MadGaines Live.
episode of With Sonar. I'm your host, Luke Velasquez, joined, of course, here with Tony Mulvey. We're very excited. This is, we're back. We're back from the future supply chain. It's good to be back. We had our show that we did there at the event that aired last week. But there's a lot of exciting things happening right now, Tony. First off, when we were at the event, you know, what was the energy like? What were the conversations that were happening?
I mean, every conversation I had was really just like, what's the market do? Well, kind of what's the market doing, but where is it headed, right? I mean, everybody kind of understood where we're sitting and currently, but there were people there. Most of the people I talked to worked on Wall Street, so they're trying to get a little bit of an edge on like, hey, what's coming down the pipe for these companies? And I mean, that was the conversations I was having.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, and that definitely seems to be where it's going, right? We've been in this insanely volatile time for the last 24 months plus now, and I think everybody was asking the question when we were on this trajectory of up and to the right of, hey, when's it going to come back down? Because at some point it's not sustainable. There's some organic growth in there, but when are we going to kind of return to the mean, if we will?
Yeah. Right.
What are as you're talking to some of those folks on the Wall Street side, do they have guesses? Do they have, obviously they have a vested interest in one way or the other, but do they have an educated guess as to where they think it's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it in the conversations I was having was what happens with the Fed and those reactions, right? If they step in and basically tank the economy, like what does that do for transportation? And I mean, obviously, it's not going to be a good thing. I mean, anytime the consumer's slowing down, transportation is going to take a hit. I mean, even though there are sectors that are exposed, industrial, construction, things like that. I mean, we've talked about it, flatbed, right? And you've seen it kind of lose some of its steam over the past month. And then you see new home sales yesterday down for the first time in years. And I mean, you're just kind of seeing a lot of broader trends, and that's kind of the theme that a lot of those guys had was what happened with the government and how the government kind of steps in.
No, spot on. Something I'm really excited for today, though, is this will be, when we were at the Future Supply Chain event 2 weeks ago, we unveiled the new Container Atlas product inside of Sonar, which, for those who aren't aware, really tracks the global ocean markets and really kind of never before seen supply and demand data for those markets. And a lot of the data in there really, leads pricing movements. It leads future truckload demand, especially if we're looking at the U.S., although we can look at pretty much any country in the world with the new tool, which is very exciting. But Tony, kind of give us a little, for a lot of folks maybe who are viewing this who are maybe only tied to the truckload markets, like, why should I care what's coming into the country? Why should I care what China is shipping to the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's estimated like Chinese imports are about 16% of total U.S. truckload moves. So, I mean, you're talking almost a fifth of total truckload moves that they started in China. So, I mean, that's probably obviously the big one, right? That's where your volume comes in. But it's kind of a forward-looking indicator of what's to come. I mean, you're talking, we'll talk on it when we start bringing up some of these charts here in a little bit, but I mean, you're talking 35 days, 38 days just for a shipment to leave China to get to the U.S. and clear customs. Then it's got to go through all the other, transloading, things like that. If there's an intermodal move prior to getting it on a truck. I mean, there's just some of those impacts. So, I mean, you're talking 6-8 weeks lead times of what's coming.
No, spot on. Let's go ahead and bring up our first chart here. I think this would be a good one to start with. It's our TEU import data. So we'll go ahead and throw this up on the screen here for folks. There it is right there. So, what we're looking at right now, is this isn't a bookings data set. We'll get to that one in the next. This is basically loaded TEU volume. So TEUs that are loaded on ships. In this case, what we're looking at is Shanghai. So everything we're going to look at today is Shanghai to the United States, right? So this blue line that we've got here is as of this morning, which will be TEUs that are being loaded on ships today in Shanghai that will then ship to the United States. So, I mean, that's the last few weeks there That's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I mean, once you start, I mean, we all talked about the factors of the lockdown in Shanghai and when those lift and kind of what happens there.
Yeah.
Well, this is what's happening now, right? This is as of, I think it's as of yesterday.
Right.
So these are based on the actual departures. So these are TEUs leaving the port that have actually been loaded, the vessels left. We're talking about a 50% decline, 40 to 50% decline. I mean, that's a 40 to 50% decline in volumes.
Yeah.
Coming into the ports. Granted, this is all going to all U.S. ports, right? So we could break it out even further and be like, hey, there's going to be a decline, this percent decline headed to L.A. and whatnot. But you look at that and see that slope, it's like, it's not a great look for domestic transportation.
And we're looking at Shanghai for one of two reasons. Number one, it's the biggest port that in China that ships to the United States in terms of volume, but also because of all the lockdowns, the question is, okay, well, this port has the biggest impact on what's happening in U.S. volumes. It's the leading